Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Welcome to Inside Scoop. I'm Kimberly Costabile.
You're taking her microphone.
And I'm here with Jenée Lindner, who is president of the Friends of the Historic Fairfax Courthouse. Now, we just came back from a wild weekend with a cast of thousands for the historic Fairfax 275th anniversary. Yes. So tell me all about it. And we were mobbed, and it was so much fun, but I didn't get to see everything. You saw it all.
I did. When you have a cast of thousands, you have to have a committee of at least a couple. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to at least bring up some of the people that were that were leaders. And we had wonderful Gretchen Bulova, who was our chair. Mm-hmm. And then we had Camilla Moon, Liz Kroll, Mary Lipsey, Patrick Lemon, Susan Levy, Don Williams, Heather Bullinger, and myself, Jenée Lindner. And let me tell you, we were busy all year long as we have put together this year-long event. But of course, the big event was last Saturday. Mm-hmm. And last Saturday, I'm happy to report that we had over 70 history booths there. We had 31 reenactment living history groups that were there. We had all kinds of important people there. Martha Washington, a young George Washington. Mm-hmm. Of course, we had George Mason. And then we even had the real life, present day Lord Fairfax, mm-hmm. who is the 14th Lord. And I can't tell you how nice it was to meet the real one. You know, with all of us that are back in history, to have someone that's making history now. He was delightful. He was really delightful.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that, because this has been a year-long celebration, and we're actually just kicking it off. There's going to be more activities, mm-hmm. but it started with there was a ceremony in the courthouse that was a few weeks prior. Tell me about that.
There was a program that was done in March, mm-hmm. and when we had that particular program, what we had is of course, our gracious leader of our county. We had Chairman Bulova, who spoke, and she spoke about Fairfax City and Fairfax County, where it was and where it's come today. And one particular slide that I really enjoyed that she had drawn, it was a picture of a colonial man with a colonial Native American. And they're sitting there talking, and then it was something to the effect of, who could have imagined? And then above their heads was Tyson's Corner, as it is today.
Wow.
Which I thought, that's really true. I mean, who would have thunk?
The contrast between
their home
and the future
would be so different. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then this past week, it was crazy.
Yeah, and then this past week, and then we had other speakers. We had Gretchen Bulova, who really, in her own right, is a wonderful historian, and she is actually coming up as the Virginia Association of Museums president, and she is also an officer for our historic Alexandria, and really was a tremendous help for all of us other volunteers that were going, how do we put something like this together? Right. And she says, let me show you how to do this. And so, and then our other featured speaker was Kurt Vibrantz, mm-hmm. who is president of Mount Vernon. So of course we had to have him come.
Oh yeah.
That's our most illustrious estate that we have in the county, and certainly George Washington is our most illustrious citizen. So we had to do that.
Oh yeah, and we'll be showing some, in the next segment, we're going to show some footage from the secession vote. But the reenactors had fun doing all kinds of things. But then there was also 1950s dancing, and we really looked at Fairfax from every decade, every point of view.
Yeah.
But we'll start at the beginning for the benefit of this audience. We're going to start at the beginning with a little bit about George Washington, and not only can we say George Washington slept here, but you also said that Captain Smith had made his way even prior to our incorporation.
Yes,
so what's that story?
All right. As you know, Jamestown is settled in 1607. Doesn't go real well, and so Captain John Smith is made head of the colony. And one of the things he does is he does an exploration visit by boat. So he leaves Jamestown, he goes up the Chesapeake, and he actually goes up the Potomac River. He comes up as far as Great Falls. And he's able to see, they said that he also stopped at an Indian village, is where Belhaven is today, which was just south of Alexandria. And he talks about how plentiful the fish was, how beautiful the area was, how you saw all kinds of things growing. And yeah, we have a report from that early that Fairfax County is the place to be.
Oh yeah, up to Great Falls. So
that's right. That's
something.
right.
And then you have a little bit of a scoop on George Washington. So
I
show us some
do.
slides. So, and we can let's see if we can get to the slideshow here. Yeah, you can look at that. So.
Well, we begin here with our 275th anniversary, historically Fairfax. And if you didn't know, that means that Fairfax County was begun in 1742. So, and our first slide, here's our General George Washington, born in 1732, dies in 1799. But you may go, well, we all know that, but what you might not know is that the week before George Washington would pass away in 1799, he would go and visit his good friend, Brian Fairfax, who would become the 8th Lord Fairfax of Cameron. And when they would visit, he would visit him at Mount Eagle Estate, which is actually, if you look at it, is no longer in existence. Instead, we have the upper deck of the Huntington Metro. So if you want to say George Washington was here, well, go to the upper deck of the Huntington Metro and you can say, all right, I've been there. Also, we do have the Montebello apartment, which are also located where that beautiful estate was. The two of them would have dinner and then go back. George Washington would go back to his home, and then 3 days before he dies, Brian Fairfax would return the favor. And what's interesting about this story is to think that of all the people that George Washington would visit, the last week of his life, 7 days before he would visit Lord Fairfax, 3 days before he dies, he would visit.
And they'd visit him.
He would visit him, and then of course, a few days after that, on December 14th, 1799, George Washington would pass away. And
do you know anything else from his diaries about his relationship?
they were friends for over 50 years, these two. And when you think about it, you have to realize that these two came from polar opposites in the way that they felt life should be. And one said, we want to break from England, and the other one was, no, let us stay here. And it's interesting that those two could have a friendship, and it's interesting when you read their letters, they always say, you are someone that I treasure as a friendship. Even though we disagree, I want you to know that our friendship endures. And I think that's an important story to tell.
So in the middle of the Revolutionary War, did Lord Fairfax have to move back, or what happened to the Fairfax family?
Well, some of them did stay and some of them did leave. And so when you had some of them leave, of course, that's one thing. But those that stayed, the ones that stayed actually was Lord Fairfax VI. I do have a picture of him. I'd like to see what he looked like. There he is. There's the Honorable Sir Thomas Fairfax, 6th Lord Baron of Cameron. And he was our highest ranking lord that ever came to the American colonies to visit. And if you notice, you see he dies in 1781. And where does he die? Dies in Virginia. He would come, go back to England, and then return and would actually stay here for the rest of his life. And he was not molested because he was a friend of the Washington family, and George Washington had been mentored by him. Actually, George Washington's first jobs that he ever had was to survey for Lord Fairfax.
Ah, okay.
And so when they, George Washington was, just a lad. He was a teenager.
Yeah.
And he had these opportunities, and for whatever reason, Lord Fairfax VI just really took a shine to him. Well, of course we know the reason. George Washington was a wonderful person.
So when he helped survey Alexandria, was that working for Lord Fairfax?
Yes.
Ah,
yes.
okay.
That was through Lord Fairfax. And so Lord Fairfax, one reason why he came here initially was because of the issue of his proprietary. He had a Northern Neck proprietary. And I want to show you, this is what it is. And what we know is that it was 5,200,000 acres.
Wow.
It was between the Rappahannock and the Potomac River. And Lord Fairfax VI had inherited that from the Culpeper family through his mother. And so we're really happy that George Washington could be a part of that. And of course there were other surveyors, and they would work very hard. In today's world, I had this map done. Kind of gives you a better idea of what counties that included. Now look at where Fairfax is. There's not a lot there. It's right at the tail end. It's actually, Fairfax County is 400 plus square miles. That's less than 1% of Lord Fairfax's original land grant of
Amazing.
5,200,000 acres. Yeah,
Amazing.
It is amazing.
Wow.
It's amazing.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit, but I'm excited to find out a little bit more of the stories behind the story with you. And then also with the courthouse, just I know that their wills are at the courthouse.
They are.
And
They are.
A lot of things.
There's a lot of things there. There's tax deeds. If ever you needed to register for anything, think about it. When you would go, needed to have a land survey done, but then after you had it surveyed, you would need to take it over and have it registered.
Good.
You were getting ready to vote, all kinds of things.
Well, we're going to be right back in a little bit, but starting July 10th, be sure to catch Inside Scoop live at 8 p.m. And so, but we're going to be back in just a couple of minutes and talk a little bit more with Chris, your son, about what it was like to reenact this past weekend. Thank you, and we'll be right back.
Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about rooftop life. Nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Yeah.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Why don't you just wash your car at home?
When I wash my car, everything runs down the street and down into the storm drains. With all the chemicals and the soaps and waxes, the last thing I want to do is poison my own drinking water. At least here, it's all contained and recycled on site. That's why I also take my car in for oil changes instead of doing it myself. I might take a chance on spilling stuff. You know what the best part is?
What?
More time to kick back and watch the game.
How far would you go to protect the planet?
I want you to build an ark.
Here we go. Okay, that's good. Oh, okay. Ow!
Maybe there's another way.
People, the flood is imminent!
Is it too much to ask for a little precipitation?
Go to fightglobalwarming.com to find out what you and your community can do to reduce global warming pollution.
Adventure can be found anywhere, but the best place to start is in the forest.
I spy something beginning with S.
Snow?
No.
Snow-covered trees.
Nothing to do with snow.
Head outside to discover incredible animals and beautiful plants that come together to create an unforgettable adventure.
Wow.
So grab your loved ones.
Don't even.
And explore a world of possibilities.
Come on, this way.
Visit discovertheforest.org to find the closest forest or park to you.
Somewhere around the world, there are men and women of the armed forces risking their lives, helping rebuild communities after natural disasters, collecting toys for needy children, tutoring kids in school. These are your sons and daughters who work to keep us safe, secure, and free. Dedicated men and women who put their country first.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back. We're here with Chris Lindner. Chris, tell me a little bit about what this past week was like for you.
It was a little crazy because, there's always the little things at the last minute, and you make sure this shows up and make sure everyone knows where they're supposed to go. And I had actually only just moved back from Richmond a few weeks ago, but honestly, I'd commuted almost every weekend up here just to help out with this event, make sure everything runs as smoothly as we can.
Mm-hmm. And you were saying that you have a degree in event management and event planning, from what I understand.
I have a degree from Full Sail and live events, both the tech and the management side, and a second degree in entertainment business.
Mm-hmm. And so how did that come in handy for this event?
Quite a bit, because there really is a lot when you're dealing with these large events that people don't think about. Whether it's certain permits, whether it's making sure correct people are being correctly communicated. I went to some reenactment groups to make sure they had the correct paperwork file. You didn't sign this one, Harry.
Right, right.
I had to drive out and do some
part.
of those,
Yeah.
Because especially since we're dealing with so many organizations, county and the sheriff's department and all these and the courthouse all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and Deputy Moon from the Sheriff's Department did a spectacular job.
She did amazing with
together.
a lot of work. That was sort of her specialty, and she pulled it off.
Wow. Yeah, and so how did that go? I attended one meeting with you, but there are 14 organizations involved. So how did or more? How did that get roped? How did she manage all those folks?
She just did.
Yeah.
She's also a sheriff. She knows how to be a leader. And so she kept it organized, she kept it enjoyable, and we got down to work.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yep. And then a couple weeks ago, we heard from different folks about that too. But now your perspective is just making sure everyone has the right equipment in their booths, and I know you helped a good friend of mine with a laptop and a projector, so you kind of really...
I was setting up tents, making sure people had sandbags. I was like, oh, do you have sandbags? No. Okay, I'll get more sandbags. Things like that people don't always consider if they're not very good with event management. It's like, no, you need that.
And you are a man with wearing several hats because you are also an actor or a reenactor, so...
A reenactor. I also do live Mad Science, which is interactive science classes at elementary school. I have also done, history soldiers. I kind of do a lot of things.
Now this week we caught, not only you, but we caught Congressman Connolly on tape reenacting the secession vote. And and that must have been exciting.
Yeah, it was a recreation of the May 23rd, 1861 vote of whether or not to succeed from the Union. All around there were small little spots where the locals would come and vote, and you were allowed to vote, and you were allowed to say a statement, and you were supposed to stay civil.
William Smith, for the past 4 terms I have represented this county in the United States House of Representatives. And in the House, I argued that Virginia, there is no question as to the legality of secession. People will say the Constitution says nothing about secession. It does not give the states the power to leave. It does not give the federal government the power to keep states in. Therefore, the 10th Amendment to the Constitution applies, which says that any powers not specifically granted to the federal government, they are not granted the powers to enforce it to maintain, nor specifically denied to the state, belong to the state. That is the situation here. Now, the question then is the necessity of secession. And up till mid-April, I was arguing that there is no need for Virginia to secede. We have actually more in common with Pennsylvania than we do with Mississippi. Now, I can see Mississippi and Massachusetts not being in the same union because they don't even speak the same language. This is the funny way those people from Massachusetts talk, they kind of talk with that nose. But anyhow, now though, Mr. Lincoln has said that he is going to send an army to deny these states that have already seceded their constitutional right. And Virginia is going to be forced to provide troops to deny these folks their constitutional right. And where are these troops going to march? Well, how do you get from Washington City to Charleston, South Carolina?
By boat, sir. Virginia.
By boat? Boat? The Federal Navy has what? A dozen or so boats? So they're going to invade Virginia. So what we are voting on is, should we resist invasion? Should we, as our ratification document says, we have the power to resume our independent existence? And this will cost me my job in the U.S. House of Representatives, but I speak in favor of...
I'd like to just say a couple of words. Who said, give me liberty or give me death? That was Patrick Henry in Richmond. He's a Virginian. Who was the Continental Army officer in charge? George Washington, another Virginian. Who wrote the Declaration of Independence? Thomas Jefferson, another Virginian. Who wrote the Articles of Virginia Bill of Rights? George Mason, a fourth Virginian. And who wrote the Constitution? James Madison, a fifth Virginian. Where would this country be if we didn't have Virginia?
Surely my friend is not entitled to his own version of Virginia history.
That's a fact.
George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and James Madison and James Monroe gave their lives to building this nation. George Washington was picked as a Virginian to head up our Continental Army over New England troops to show the unity of the country. We were no longer separate states fighting separately, because we knew if we hang separately, we'd hang. And
Massachusetts never paid their bill!
And they did their best to build the country, not destroy it, as my friend and neighbor here would have us do.
I'm not destroying anything.
I might quote that you
Please, can you let this gentleman continue, please? I'm just a simple man.
These people were exercising their state rights under the Constitution. Is that not so? That's of course.
They were exercising their right as God-fearing people to free these men. The gentleman asked me a question, and Mr. Lincoln has acknowledged that. He has said he has no constitutional authority to abolish slavery where it already exists. It is protected by the Constitution. So what is your grievance?
So my question is, it's a moot point as far as this debate goes.
It is a moot point, and it nullifies the reason for secession.
No, sir, the reason for secession is the ability provided in the Declaration of Independence to abolish the government if it no longer serves the people.
I think we were talking about the British government.
When a thief picks my pocket, he steals from me and we call him a crook. When a congressman picks my pocket, we call it a tax or a tariff, and he's called honorable. Both times my pocket gets picked, and they're both crooks in my eyes.
And when we have people at getting people all pent up. As if we can win this. As if our way of life will be preserved, not destroyed. You are being sold snake oil.
So we must conclude this with, we've got 2 more individuals here that need to vote, and we have some other business that we must conduct shortly in the next few. The Fairfax County vote on May 23rd, 1861, there were 151 votes cast for secession, 8 votes cast against secession, for a total number of votes 159.
Wow, quite rowdy, almost like the House of Commons nowadays. But anyway, so what was it like? You were actually in the back, the one with the red shirt and the suspenders. So what was it like? You played the recorder?
Yeah, I would play, they would come up, say their names, and take the votes. But, first, I'm doing my job, but honestly, I was just as passionate as them. And then they would sometimes tell me, and please sit down and record the votes. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Back to the writing. Oh, that's funny. And then they were also making jokes. It was kind of like Back to the Future, and with Congressman Connolly being the only one dressed in current attire. And so they looked at him, and entirely in character, they said, he must be wearing clothes from France.
Or something like that,
Yes. Yeah.
What's that fanciness?
What is that tie? I've never seen a tie like that. Yeah. So
because we have fun with these reenactments. That's part of the thing of reenactments is you should be having fun, and your audience should be having fun.
So now, and you took part in this in the anniversary of the Civil War. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, during the actual anniversary of the Civil War, actually on the day of, they performed it with most of the same actors, but I was out of town, so I wasn't part of it then. But that was a few years ago, so when the call went out, okay, who can do this? Who knows the stuff? I was like, well, I know some of the stuff. Cool. Are you going to be there? I'm going to be there helping a whole bunch. Could you maybe take a half hour off and do ours? So I volunteered while volunteering.
Amazing. And I believe it was John Vrana from I've met him through the Burke Historical Society, and he really organized this this one reenactment portion.
Yeah, it was his creation, and it's been highly successful and entertaining, and shows, honestly, that we argued back then just as much as we did today.
I bet, if not more. So, yeah, so that's amazing. And was it scripted or ad-libbed or?
It was. Most of them were actually playing their own ancestors. They've researched their ancestry and used the votes, and they did use the real problems of the times, and they took like excerpts or they researched topics. It is ad-libbed, but we all know our votes. We all know the concerns that our characters have, and then we just know history, which allow us to bounce off. Oh, if this comes up, well, I know about it, and I'm playing this type of person, so I can stand up and complain about this. Or if this comes up, well, that guy is a former governor. He knows what the type of issues he'd be concerned about. He can stand up and make those statements. Wow. So we are bouncing off each other ad lib, but it's based off the actual historical thoughts of the era that we well know and the people who actually voted.
Wow. And what was the vote? How many were for and how many were against? Or
well, as you saw on the video, I was one of the 8 that voted to stay with the Union.
Oh, you got in trouble. Okay.
Yeah, I tried to hold it all together.
But
yeah.
Okay. So now your thoughts, so getting through all this, and of course there were other reenactments. Tell me about that, what went on during the day.
Well, out front there were a whole bunch of people from all eras, everything, French and Indian, Revolution. We had a World War I, World War II mobile showing stuff from that era. A lot of reenactors, because I ran around helping a lot of them. So.
Okay, well, we're going to be back in a little bit, but we're going to say goodbye to you briefly, bring your mother back. And so we're going to head off to the next segment. We'll be back after a few minutes. But starting July 10th, again, be sure to catch Inside Scoop live at 8 p.m. here on Channel 10. Now, we'll be right back.
Take a look under your bed. Under there, what about jobs? No? Now try your closet. Still no jobs? Just more stuff? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed. That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
Calls me googly eyes.
And you know you're beautiful, right? You know that?
Even you're beautiful. I got bullied for wearing glasses. Share if you're against bullying.
We put it out there, just took off. 3 million people have shared this post. Don't let bullies get you down. I stand with you. The whole family's wearing glasses. I wear glasses and I'm proud.
I even have the army on my team.
All the kind comments brought my child joy. I don't feel thank you is enough.
Thanks. It's me, Artie. Come see what I collected from the Creative Galaxy in my idea box.
Transform your world
Will you help me make art?
before you throw it away.
Hey, I have an idea.
Think outside the box.
Go be amazing!
Give your cardboard box another life. Recycle.
Most party fouls? Not a big deal. But if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving. The ultimate party foul.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm Kimberly Costabile, and I'm here with Jenée Lindner and with the Fairfax Friends of the Historic Courthouse at Fairfax Historic Courthouse. There we go. Anyway, it's just been such a long week, and yet we've seen so many people, and it's been so much fun. And so, and this is not over. The celebration's not over. You have more talks going on and more things going on at the courthouse. So tell me a little bit more.
Well, we have several lectures planned, and we will have the next one that will be coming up will be in July, but this is important. If people want to go, they have to go to eventbrite.com to sign up. We do have limited seating. After all, it is the old historic courthouse, so we can only put like 65, 70 people in there. So it's a real intimate, but yet you're having a wonderful opportunity. For example, in July we will have Carol Herrick, who is president of the Fairfax County History Commission, and she will be talking about if these walls could talk. And the Kennedys just happen to be some of the families that lived in this particular house that she'll be talking about. In September, we will be having a talk about the African American well-known citizens that were here in Fairfax County. People don't particularly know that in Fairfax County it was unique in that you had a large population of freed African Americans as well as your enslaved. So they were busy. They were busy building schools. They were busy doing all kinds of things of commerce and communities, very, very vibrant. And so that is not known as well. And so we'll be having that. And then also we will be having the history of George Mason University, which will be talking about how it all began and why it ended up where it began. One little secret, did you know that it was not supposed to have been in Fairfax City?
No.
I know. Well, you'll have to come and learn the story of where it why it ended up here. It's a great story about how the city of Fairfax came to be. And anyway, and then we will have other events and talks and programs, and one really exciting thing that is happening for Fall for the Books this year, we're having Hugh Fairfax, who is Lord Fairfax's brother, who has written a book on the history of the family here in America. What people don't understand is that here in America, the Fairfaxes were here for 150 years. And it wasn't until the grandfather in actually 1912, I think officially, when he became a lord once again in England. And so that was an American lord, was able to come back. And so now we have our Lord Fairfax that speaks with a British accent, but in those, for a lot of years it wasn't. They spoke English, in American English.
And then you were saying in the recent Thursday night talk with the current Lord Fairfax, he actually was saying that he's more American in many ways.
Yes, yes. And it was interesting, he is in the House of Lords, and he said, I want to talk about the Brexit vote. And it was really interesting to hear it from his perspective, talking about what he saw, and it was really good. It was really good. And that was filmed by Channel 16, so that will be available for people to see and view.
Great, yeah, and I think you had some pictures of them, but I'm not sure if that'll pop up just now, but we will we'll probably take a look at that a little bit later.
All right.
But so what was it like in terms of, I know that was a sold out talk months in advance almost, and so how did that, so it was crowded, and did people were they able to bring up their own questions?
Yes.
Okay.
And I have to tell you, Gretchen Bulova, we could have had it, really could have been packed. We could have had the 500 people in there. She says, no, let's have it only 250, and then that way we can have a reception afterwards. And that worked very nicely, because 250 in the Sherwood Center in Fairfax City, that's doable. That's doable. Yeah. And so we were able to get in there. People that had questions, they were able to really ask them afterwards. But more importantly, you were able to have a talk with Lord and Lady Fairfax. And it was, so it was a public event, but there was a certain intimacy that was kept that I certainly appreciated that Gretchen decided to do.
Yeah, and that gave people plenty of time to ask their own questions.
It did. And of course, now we did have Ted McCord, who also spoke. We had Chairman Bulova that also spoke, and Gretchen Bulova was, of course, the person that kind of oversaw the whole thing. And their perspectives were very interesting. I don't know if you're aware of that Ted McCord, he actually lives at Mount Gilead, and he is a professor at George Mason University, been there for 31 years. But he was raised here. His father used to be the doctor here in the 30s and 40s, and so he has this incredible history that it's really fun to have Ted. Yeah.
Well, you have your hands in everything, and what you do at the courthouse is also you do a little bit of reenacting when you take people on tour. So tell me about that.
Sometimes. Sometimes I do. I would do reenact other people, and I really enjoy it. I think the big thing with reenacting, though, is you're trying to bring it to life. And so I love being able to do that. Of course, if it can be in the courthouse, happy day, but I also am able to do it other places. One thing I do love with the courthouse is that I can at least bring people into that space. And keep in mind, this is administered by the chief judge, which is Judge White, and of the Circuit Court of Fairfax County, and then the clerk of the court, John Fry, is the one that oversees it. So keep in mind, those are really the big players. And within the last 3 years, they, John Fry, clerk of the court, had all of the historic records of the circuit court moved. And he's been hiring people, and we have more and more really, really outstanding people. I mentioned to you Gretchen Bulova, excuse me, I mentioned to you Heather, and Heather Bollinger, who was on our 275th committee. She is one of the archivists, and she is a lead archivist there, and we could not have done this event without her. She has the pulse on the history, and she was able to bring up things that we really needed. And then there's also another person, Katrina Kompansky, who is also very involved. And then they actually have a new person named Victoria, and I apologize, I don't remember her name off the top of my head, but all three of them outstanding.
So when you say pull up things that we hadn't thought of, would that be historical facts or
no? What
elements?
No, thank you for, let me clarify that. No, it's the actual documents. For example, they have the wills. They're the ones that actually have those listed so that people can see them. If you are going and you want to do some research in a particular area, let's keep in mind Fairfax County was founded in 1742. There may be some records there that you might find interesting about the area where you're from, or some relatives, and people love to go in there. But the nice thing is the way they administer it, you can go and actually look at them. So it's this treasure trove.
Yeah.
You know, to me, anyway, it is.
No, you brought up something really good, because somebody from the Virginia room at the City of Fairfax Regional Library brought up how you can research the history of your county property. And so there's a nice handout there if you ever go to the Fairfax County Public Library. But and it's the first step to do is you want to look at the Virginia Room's Historic Landmarks file, and then the maps that show homeowners or tenants, what they were. And so beginning at White Oak, I guess there was a book, and it's
called Beginning from a White Oak Tree.
Ah, okay. Tell
me. What that is, what that refers to is the initial land record was, the way they described it, of course, you would say it was off, starting from this tree, or starting from this rock, or starting from this, some sort of a land physical description.
It's how they used to do it, by landmarks instead of,
So Fairfax County, it was beginning from a white oak tree.
Oh, and then there's another book about Fairfax County in 1760 and Fairfax County in 1860, a collective biography. And then they said to look at the map of northeastern Virginia and the vicinity of Washington. All that's in there.
Yes.
And then, but it said if you want to go way back, you would look at Prince William County from 1731 to 1741. And you look at Stafford County from 1664 to 1730, and Westmoreland County from 1653 to 1663, and then the oldest records would be Northumberland County from 1645 to 1652. So we're quite old. So
keep in mind that Fairfax County was not that 410 square miles that I mentioned to you earlier. It used to include, a lot more area. And so, and just like when you said Northumberland, Fairfax County used to be a part of Northumberland County, but that's quite a ways from where it is today. Right. And in those days, people didn't travel as well as they do today, and they were certainly not as precise as we are today.
Oh, yeah. And then the other hint, we've only got 1 minute left, but the other hint that they told me was in 1965 they changed the phone books. And in changing the phone books, that's something else that landowners need to look at, because the street address has changed. So But anyway, we're going to have you come back in a little bit and talk a little bit more about how people can find their identity, where they live, and what happened in their own backyard.
Okay.
So, and hopefully with your help and with the library, they'll find it out, all they need.
The Virginia Room, go there. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and then go to the Fairfax.
Historic records, that's right.
So starting July 10th, be sure to catch Inside Scoop live at 8 p.m. here on Channel 10. We'll be right back.
There's more than just books at the library.
There's more than just books at the library.
Excuse me.
There's more than just books at the library.
Il y a plus que de livres à la bibliothèque.
Hello. You have a lot of great books here today. You know there's more than just books at the library.
I know.
There's more than just books at the library.
1,200 American youth run away from their homes every day. The National Runaway Switchboard is here to help. 1-800-RUNAWAY. If you are a runaway, thinking about running away from home, or a parent or guardian concerned about issues facing your child, call us 24 hours a day. 1-800-RUNAWAY. In times of crisis, hope is just a phone call away. 1-800.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm Kimberly Costabile, and we're here with Jenée Lindner, and she is the president of the historic Fairfax Courthouse. Well, the Friends of the
Historic Fairfax Courthouse.
That is still a mouthful. I don't know.
It
I'm
is.
going to get that. Yes, but anyway, so we're here with the Friends, and you're going to tell me a little bit more about how that group was organized and how a person can volunteer and what are the needs of that organization. A little bit.
Well, as Clerk of the Court John Fry was deciding to open it up more to the public in association with Judge White, that became a need that I could see where I could step forward and help. I'm actually in charge of the walking tours in Fairfax City. And so we were so delighted when we were able to open it up and we could take people in. And that was something I guess they had been thinking about for quite some time. And I just kind of happened to walk by at the perfect moment, and so I was able to create this, and what we've been able to do is, our goal, of course, is to help open the courthouse. However, our job is a supportive role. Of course, it is a county court, still is, and certainly that is something that still needs to be worked with them if people ever want to have a special event inside the courthouse. But where we have found, we have just been able to bring foot traffic. That's been our mantra. Also, we are very interested in supporting the whole county as far as offering tours, offering opportunities. We would love to come talk to schools. We'd love to have opportunities to talk about the courthouse, but then also what it means living here in Fairfax County. I was talking to you earlier, for example, I developed a constitutional rights tour with the Virginia Historical Society, and then OLLI, which is the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at George Mason. And with that, what we've done is I developed a tour. We start at the courthouse, see George and Martha Washington's will. We see George Mason as well as George Washington's document signed, which was a pew document for church pews, because they were both vestrymen in the court, excuse me, at the church. And they both signed it, which is kind of unusual because we don't have other documents that they signed together. And so then from there, I take them down to the Pohick Church, and we talk about, let me tell you, they have some wonderful people down there that they actually reenact Reverend Massey. Anyway, and then from there, of course, we go to Gunston Hall, and of course, that our wonderful, illustrious George Mason, who wrote the Fairfax Resolves, and then...
So that sounds like a bus tour where they get to hit all the great spots.
Yes.
Wow, I want to go on that.
Yes, and then finally...
So how do they sign up?
How do they sign up? Well, what you do is you get a group, and then you go to our website, and you say, I am interested in having a group take that.
And the website again is?
www.oldfairfaxcourthouse.org.
Oldfairfaxcourthouse.org.
Yes.
Okay. Super. And so then you used to be a teacher.
I did.
So I wanted to get your impressions. I also went for National History Day in College Park, Maryland. And we have a tape from Maryland where the kids were doing their history exhibits, but it's a national event that happens so everything happened in 1 week this week. And so let's go to College Park and see that tape.
I'm Bill Obrachta, and I'm the Manager of Educational Services at the Virginia Historical Society, and I supervise our Virginia History Day coordinator, who is Christine Rodak. So,
oh, wonderful. And you use Virginia
I've got a
history.
lovely Virginia history shirt. We're in Virginia, unlike someplace like Arizona where people come in together. If you're in Fairfax, you might come not for the entire event. So I'm trying to catch up with all the students. So I'm kind of holding office hours in the lobby here from 12 to 2.
Kim Courtney, the executive, actually the deputy director of the National History Day. And is this year different? I know you have 100 more students than you had in previous years.
We do. We're very excited about that.
Yeah. And what else makes this year a little different?
Well, taking a stand is one of my personal favorite themes. It tends to bring out students' passion about their topic. They really look for individuals or groups that have gone above and beyond and done something really powerful in history. So they're passionate kids seeking passionate topics. So I tend to like that theme a little bit more. But certainly we have lots of other themes, and every year it changes a little bit so that kids can pick a topic that suits them. So this one, for example, Jane Addams takes a stand for society's outcasts. This is an example of a woman from the 19th century in Chicago who actually worked through the early 20th century, taking a stand for the rights of those who were less fortunate. She really took a lot of risk to take a stand for women, for children, for people in dire need, to provide home and care for children and so on. So this is a terrific example of the kind of things that students get really excited about. But the room is so filled with lots of others. We have students choosing Ruby Bridges and Alice Paul and all sorts of other people. Some topics are national, some are local. but in every one you can see the passion of the students.
And then we begin to understand the great power of history itself. History isn't just about those past events. It's the questions we in the present ask of those past events. And so they cannot help but be informed, however consciously or subconsciously, by our own hopes and fears.
Okay, so great. Well, it sounds neat that they're doing a lot of good things. And so tell me again how you got hooked on history.
I love it because I got hooked on it because of genealogy. Even as a little girl, I would love to sit down with my grandmother and we would talk about her ancestors, and I just loved it. And I think too, I lived many years outside of the United States. I know how precious it is to have that American passport, and to be an American citizen. So I have a love for this nation that runs very deep,
So do you think that childhood is the best time to get kids hooked on history?
If you can personalize it, absolutely.
Early childhood.
Absolutely, personalize it. But I think what they are doing there, where you're teaching auditory, the visual, the tactile, being able to use all those modalities to teach, also will make it more personal to them. And history, you can do that. You can have reenactors, you can have living history, you can do plays, you can do, there's just so many things you can do with it.
The new word is project-based learning, and so to have the kids make films, it just by creating the project, then they integrate the factoids in their head. It's no longer just a factoid; it's a story and storytelling, and so that's what's exciting. Now, but getting back, I loved this past weekend seeing the kids in costumes playing with hoops and the old colonial toys, and I didn't see anyone. I didn't see anyone on their iPhones. The kids were having fun.
No, they were. And I mean, we were having drills, marches going on. They even had an 18th century picnic. Oh, yes. And that was the thing, is you see, this was for families, and there was a purpose in that, that's what the whole focus was. And gratefully, we had Gretchen Bulova that understood how to do that. We had Mary Lipsey also, who was our educational consultant, and she was terrific. And she has also been, she's been also very involved with this particular program that was up at College Park. So
so again, the children's section was awesome, and hopefully they'll be doing this again. But we're going to wrap up, but hopefully there'll be a longer show just on history. But again, starting July 10th, be sure to catch Inside Scoop live at 8 p.m. here on Channel 10. And again, thanks for being with us tonight, and we hope you had a little taste of our Fairfax party.
Thank you.